Welcome to the Business Lounge. Now, if you like your watches, you may well be interested to hear what my next guest has to say. Mark Blowers is a watch specialist and part of the Ian Blowers Jewellers, which is based in Yorkshire, but you do business all over the world.
Absolutely. We've been specialists from our website. We deal throughout the region, throughout the UK, and increasingly internationally as well. We've found specialist audience throughout Europe, and every week we're sending parcels out into different continents. So it's been very, very, very good.
How did it all start? Because your father started it, didn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a family-run business. My father started the business dealing in coins and stamps 40 years ago. I joined the business about 16 or 17 years ago, just at the sort of birth of the internet for us, really. We got a website up and running. We had enough time in the business then to be able to develop and get our foot in the door very early, and that's where, you know, the seeds from the watch site has grown, and you know, for us has become a success. Was
it always expected that you were going to follow in the family's business? Did you want to follow in the family's business?
Yeah, I mean, it's always something. My father, obviously, when I was much younger, you know, has sort of had a genuine enthusiasm for business, full stop. I played squash professionally for up until the age of 21. And, you know, it was then we saw the opportunity to take the business to another level and look at the option of the internet. You know, he ran a very successful independent local jewellers, but just at the time the internet was really starting to show its potential for some businesses. There was a definite opportunity for us to take advantage of that and then develop the business into an international retailing business that it's become in the last 5 years.
But the sort of people, the sort of clients that you have, the sort of jewellery and the watches that you deal with, you surely didn't just walk in through the door one day and had on-the-job training, or did you?
Not at all. I mean, there was a period of 2 or 3 years where you learn your trade, there's an awful lot of experience needed, and during that time, as I do with anything, I got very enthusiastic about it, and I've learnt an awful lot about the running of the business, and you know, the watches. You'd be amazed at the passion that there are for collectible and rare watches that are out there, and we've tapped into that, you know, significantly, and you can't help but get involved in that yourself and become very enthusiastic and passionate about the products that you retail, and it's a wonderful business to be in, and you know, some of the people that we deal with on a day-to-day business are fantastic, really are.
Now, we're going to have a look at some of the watches. That's
yeah,
going to
absolutely.
be in the second part of this interview that you'll be able to find on the website as well. But how did you go from coins to dealing with the watches? Was that something that you brought in?
It was a little bit. I mean, it was a very natural progression. We've always found when an opportunity comes, it's the right way for us to go. We dealt a little bit in coils and stamps. We then became dealers in jewellery and gold. And the obvious way for us to go when we started buying and selling the odd Rolex here and there was to look at developing a website, and that was a big step for us. We found we had a much increased audience, and from dealing just locally, as I say, we're sending, you know, 10 to 15 parcels out internationally through the growth and the recommendations we've had from dealing with us over the last 15 years.
It seems, well, to me, unusual or odd. You have a website. That's not the unusual and odd bit. But for people who want to spend several £1,000s on a watch, they buy that on the internet. They don't want to touch it, feel it, see it, try it.
Where we've had a real success is the fact that we have a phenomenal online presence. We've worked very, very hard at having sort of a well-optimised website. So if you type in a specific keyword, it'll come highly on Google, and also the comfort of people seeing the watch on the website. They might be pretty close to thinking, well, you know, I'd like to buy that, but you will often find the comfort of coming into a retail premises without an appointment. They could come in 6 days a week, have a look at a watch and handle it, and that's where we've got both sides of the coin, the online presence and the retail premises to work from as well.
How have you built the company aside from the website?
Well, as I say, we keep a very sustainable approach to business. We look at opportunities as they come, and it's been a very simple format for us. The increased level of stock, the increased referrals we get from whether it's a business, families or friends where people recommend us, that's where we've seen very, very good growth for us.
But it's difficult again because you see, again, a very expensive watch.
Yeah.
Would not normally suggest that customer will be a repeat customer unless they have an awful lot of disposable income to spend on watches and they're a collector, because a watch will last for a long time, one would hope.
Yeah, I mean, one thing which has been lovely for us, if you was to ask somebody what is the favourite watch these days, you will often find they couldn't answer the question. People have collections of watches. We have customers throughout the UK and Europe have 15, 20 watches as part of the collection. The one key area where we've won customers and kept them is the fact that, you know, watches can be based as similar to a commodity, where if you purchase an expensive watch, and a lot of people can't afford to buy watches endlessly, they will say, well, look, let's have a part exchange. And that's where we found we've won a lot of custom, where we'll happily take watches back that we've sold and make sure the levels that we buy them back at are very, very favourable for the customers.
How's the industry changed over the last decade?
I think substantially. The internet has undoubtedly had a huge influence on how watches are retailed. I think the days of people walking down the high street and paying retail prices for watches has diminished substantially. We've got huge collections of watches which people can buy at substantial discounts, and second-hand watches as well. If you can buy a second-hand watch at 30% to half what the retail price is, obviously, if ever you want to part exchange that in the future, you know you're going to get a good residual value back on the watches, certainly.
And I know it's not just watches that the company deals with.
Yeah,
and you have kept it in the family. Your sister works, Nikki, as well.
That's right, yeah. Well. Nicola just recently joined us in the last couple of years, and you know, we're hoping she's going to take the jewellery and diamond stock to the similar sort of levels that the watches are carrying at the minute. So she's sort of working very hard at that, and I'm sure there'll be some good results from that in the next couple of years.
How important is it, do you think, from the Blowers family point of view, to keep the business in the family?
It's important to have a very good team around you. We're very lucky. We've got a fantastic manager. We've got another 2 or 3 members of staff, Katie, who's the engine room of the business in terms of looking after all the very important back end of the business, and that helps us to target the type of customers and audience we're looking for, and you know, have a really sort of successful small team behind us.
Do your customers sometimes see buying watches and diamonds and jewellery from you as a business as well? Do they look at it from an investment point of view, or is it really an expensive luxury? It's
not. I mean, we've found, particularly with the uncertainty there's been in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had, you know, we weren't quite sure how things would go, but we've had a phenomenal success with people buying watches as a commodity. It's a very portable commodity to buy, and with the advice that we give, in the last year or 2, we regularly buy watches back up from customers or take them back in part exchanges at higher figures than we actually sold them to. So if you can give customers good advice on the right type of product which suits them, and that with the expertise we've got, in 3 to 5 years' time, sometimes it can take 10 to 20 years' time. But as I said, there's been a lot of press recently in newspapers that have showed watches have been very good short to long-term investment things to buy.
Did the business suffer during the recession?
It didn't, for the reasons I've mentioned. We actually had an increase in turnover and profitability. People were very, very nervous at some points about having savings in accounts. You know, lots of people had investments, stocks, which were performing terribly, and at the point where the banks were saying, look, you know, we're not sure we can guarantee your funds, people said, well, look, you know, let's get our money out and buy something which we can have.
So are we, as retail customers, are we becoming a lot more savvy about the jewellery that we buy?
Massively. Internet forums, chat rooms, there's all sorts of portals for not only watches but any high-end products, and you can get a huge amount of advice from other fellow collectors, and we monitor our online reputation very, very closely. So if you're not fair with people, the prices you give back for watches aren't good, that reflects in the feedback you get from various forums. So for that reason, we monitor that closely and make sure that you know, the real enthusiasts and collectors out there are looked after, and you know, that reputation without doubt spreads, certainly.
Okay. Well, for now, Mark, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Part 2 of my conversation with Mark will see us looking through some of the watches that he's brought in, but also talking about the investment possibilities and the investment opportunities that some people have already exploited, not just with watches, but also with diamonds, with gold, with other forms of jewellery.